Hey everybody, so the point of today's video is to talk about the misconceptions around data. I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to this particular topic. Off the top, do I think that data is the future? Do I think that data is a kind of the center of everything when it comes to AI? Yes, absolutely, I do, 100%. Do I think that there's any value in investing in data as a long-term instrument as opposed to like say like software or anything else? And my answer is no, I do not. I think that there is 0% value in investment in hoarding or dealing in data or anything like that. Like I saw there's a few companies that are coming up there, like startups that are investing in data, right? Like they're like data brokers, things like that. They're like, oh, well, we'll match you with data people. I think anything like that is going to fail 1,000,000%. And those people, they understand the first part, that data is everything, but they don't understand past that point, right? So when we as humans are faced with problems, we deal with those problems, right? And I think there's a large part of the community still that they think that it's so AI development has been around for 70 years, right? And then the majority of AI development is still taking place in the research realms, despite what other people want to think, or despite what some companies want to tell you overall, etc. Right? Like 90% of breakthroughs and 90% of everything that's coming out is still coming out of the research community as opposed to like the corporate community. And so within that, the research community realized up front that the biggest bottleneck is going to be this data issue. Like the research community realized this up front, right? There's going to be monopolistic people that are going to want to monopolize this issue, and essentially what we're seeing now, like this problem was thought of 5 years ago. And so what's the answer? The answer is if you dive into the research community of it, the problem's already solved, bro. Like flat out. Like there's like you just don't know that the problem has already been solved. And then so what we're looking at here. So this is FineWeb, and this is just the latest iteration. So FineWeb is a distillation, a fine wine distillation of the internet, literally the internet. Anything that is openly available and that you can access on the internet, like that is publicly accessible internet, is in this data set. But this data set takes that one step further, right? It's not just the internet. It's not like, okay, here's the internet as raw data. They do a few things to it. They filter it and they refine that data. And then what they've found is through these refinements, they've found a way to perfect this data. And then so to give you an idea of the size of this data set, the overall size of this data set is about 15 terabytes of data, period. So 15 trillion tokens is essentially what we're looking at here as far as a data set. Massive data set. GPT-2 was trained on, I think it's 250 billion tokens. So this absolutely dwarfs that data set. And then what you'll see here is, I wanted to scroll down to this chart specifically, right? So this has FineWeb, C4, the Pile, DOMA, and Red Pajama and Slim Pajama data sets. And then I want to note that there are far more data sets that this is leading off. There's like, for example, like Cosmopedia. And then so Cosmopedia is bigger than the Wikipedia data set. It's like a 10 trillion, 10 terabytes, I think. And it's all synthetic data. But so all of these that are listed here, so FineWeb, C4, the Pile, Refined Red Pajama, and Slip Pajama are all 10 terabytes or over. So like combined, there's more data that exists here than existed 3 years ago, right? And then like a period. If you wanted to go with like the internet scrape 3 years ago, you can do that, and that's about like 5 terabytes. Whereas I can just like right here, I'm pulling 60 terabytes, and I'm pulling it of better data than existed 3 years ago. Like so, I mean, researchers they realized this problem, right? And then so they went to town on this problem. And then there's one research paper that people like to state that like it said like, oh, maybe synthetic data is bad, like one research paper, right? And then since that research paper, there's been 500 research papers that have refuted that. There's a research paper that came out like the very next day that refuted that research paper. But because that one research paper says what people want it to state when it comes to the monetization of this particular topic, then people try to stand behind that and grandstand on that. But plain and simple truth is that synthetic data in many tests and in many ways outperforms actual data. Right? I personally 100% always use a synthetic blend of data. And then so with all this said, right, does this mean that your data is absolutely worthless overall and that you shouldn't invest in your data? No, right? Because so what becomes very important within this is the data that is important to your specific company and your specific industry. Like the more narrow the data is and the more refined the data points are, the more valuable that data is. And then so within that, like the reason why I don't start any sort of like of these data broker companies or anything like that is because they're setting themselves up for the opposite agenda from jump. In order for that model to work, they have to essentially lie to you or make sure that you don't know essentially what I just told you, right? Like that's their whole agenda, because they want you to give that data to them for free or for less than it's actually worth, because that's the only like critical value. Like what your actual business does, what your corporation does, like your internal data is worth gold. Like it just, I mean, look at there's a reason Salesforce is trying to sell your data, Microsoft is trying to sell your data, Adobe is trying to sell your data. All of these big corporations, they're all now like trying to reach their hands directly into your corporate data. Like that's the data that they're going after, right? Because that's the gold. Like and then why would you sell that data overall? Like knowing that, like actually thinking about it, like, oh, that's the actual data that they're going after. Why would you sell that to anyone? Like that's your priceless data, right? It's only worth something to your specific industry and your specific niche. If you're selling it to someone, then you're giving them free reign to your niche, which you can do if you want. Like as a tech company, I don't care. Like cool. Like I want that data, right? As a tech company, because I want to go into your niche, but recognize that that's what you're selling then, is you're selling your niche when you're selling that data, which is why I don't think that this market will materialize in any way or shape or form that people actually think it will. Like people think that there's a problem here at the top with this massive amounts of data. No, that problem has been solved. And then so they think that then there could be a secondary market with you wanting to sell your data to me to take you out of business. And then that only works if I'm tricking you into giving you selling me your data. I don't think that's a good sustainable business model in the end. I don't think that's going to work overall in the end. I hope it doesn't work overall. There's a lot of sharks that'll be bad for society overall. But I think that won't work because I think people are smart enough to understand that. So, and if you're watching this, and obviously you kind of get this concept if you're watching it to this point, right? So, and then just kind of highlighting the last thing I want to showcase within this before I end the video is going back to that synthetic data point, right? So this is just flat out showing a data set that I've created, and I can create this all day long. So I create and I market a product that I call knowledge bots, knowledge-based bots, right? Which is different than chat bots because it's internal facing, and I bill it as internal facing and not actually trained on your corporate data, but rather on your system data. So like, for example, if you use Oracle e-business suite, right? And then so in this particular example, what I do is I just flat out, I take the business manuals that are available, again, on the publicly available internet, the user guides and the developer guides, and then I distill them into synthetic data that we're looking at here, prompt and response pairs of 500 rows. And then so this data set and all of this is proprietary to me. This is a synthetic data set that I have created and I have distilled, and I can trace back down and I can show you the history, the full history of exactly where I came from this data set and how I got about this data and where this data, the root of this data is coming from. But this data in and of itself is 100%, 1000% synthetic. And then according to every single definition. And then so within that, it's essentially free reign to do whatever you would like within that. And that's kind of how this data structures work overall, right? Like it's like that's the biggest part of this is like uh, there's not really much to monopolize once you get down into it, because someone else could do this the same exact thing that I could, right? And then so it's going into the data, like while I'm invested in the data short term, investing in data long term is bad strategy overall. Period. Right? For all these reasons that I'm laying out, I can't crystallize this enough for you that I don't. I think that at the end of the day, data is worth $0. So, like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.